Hello. Yeah, hi. So in the last lecture, where were we plotted, yeah, we plotted this equation. It is the equation for the frequencies of the monomer and plotted it in MATLAB. And further, we also plotted not just the real wave numbers, we also plotted the imaginary wave numbers, right? So let's have a look at that. Yeah, so we see the recap. So this first three commands, CLC, clear, and close. And the clear, the command window, workspace, and if any extra tabs are open in MATLAB, they'll close that. The figures. Otherwise, what will happen is that if you have figures, then you may be there may be data in that figure, and you may end up plotting over it. Your data might look cluttered, and you might be wondering why is it so. This is important, just to ensure that any previous run is not interfered. Take nominal values for stiffness. K is equal to 1. We define M is equal to 1. We define A is equal to 1. Then, then we describe wave numbers as a set of array, one-dimensional array. So, so this first term is the first value. This last term is the last value. This is how you describe a 1D array. And then the term in the middle, that is size of the step. So what should be the gap between different values? So I've given 100th. If 100th is the gap, this goes from, let's say, some minus value to plus value. Then in total, we'll have 100 plus 100 and one particle in the center, like 201 entries in Q. And that is what we observe here, 201. So you can open it, see. We see that it is going from minus pi by A, since A is 1, minus pi 201st. This is again, yeah, again pi. By a is 1, so again, yeah, pi by a. It goes from minus pi by a to pi by a. And there are 201 entries. Cool. Then what we are doing here is that we're describing a formula for omega. Omega is also an array, right? So everything is a constant except this q term here. So what ends up happening is I don't have to describe, I don't have to initiate omega. I can just describe omega as a function of q, and it will automatically assign omega as an array. That's what we see here. See that omega going from 2 and the 101st element 0. And again it will go to 2. So before 0 and after 0 there are 100 elements each. So this is a simpler vectorized way of describing omega. I think I didn't elaborate too much on this in the last class, so I thought it was worth mentioning. In figure 1, you see what is this doing? So this is creating a figure, and then that opens a window. Then that is assigning that figure a name, figure 1, label. And later we can change things related to the figure by saying fig1 dot position. So fig1 is the parent, position is the child property. It's a parent and child relationship wherein fig1 is a larger uh, entity and position is a specific property. A lot of fun fact, a lot of softwares used to use terminologies like master, slave. So that is considered racist in some way, and I guess appropriately so. That's why I think the better way of saying the same thing is parent child. Property, sub property, maybe sounds too technical. So, yeah, right. And then this is the position. So let's play around with it. So what happens when we make this 200? First, let's just plot it. Okay, it's plotted, but let me just share. Hmm. Right. So this is where we had stopped last time. So we plotted frequency on the y-axis and wave number on the x-axis. And we plotted this blue is the pass band, and this orange, that's the attenuation band. This line, this just marks the cutoff frequency which we got analytically. We see that exactly at the point where pass band ends, attenuation band begins. That's really important, which means we got our attenuation band correct. Okay, instead of 200, if we have 400, what happens? See, the figure is shifted. Instead of 400, if we have 800, figure is shifted further. The first value in this is denoting the x coordinate. Okay, and as we increase, let's make it 800 was fine. Okay, let's see what this does. Say 250. What happens? See, it got shifted up, right? Or 150 should be somewhere in the middle. Now 150 is somewhere in the middle. You know what? I'll just do 100. Perfect. Okay, so the second coordinate is first and second coordinates are x and y coordinates of the bottom left edge. How do I prove that it is the bottom left edge? Let's take 0, 0 and let's see what happens. It should start right at the corner of the screen. See, that's the left bottom edge. And what are these units? 800, 100. These are pixels. So we can also write them. We can also write these position coordinates in a normalized fashion. So that helps because you might be using different screens, maybe laptop and some PC and some, you know. So the pixels that are contained in the screen, the resolution of the screen and the size of the screen, they change. So if you're relying on pixels, then what you get is consistent number of pixels, but what you lose is the scaling. So this is fine for now, but if you want to make it better, it's advisable to use normalized so that it does not depend on the pixel clarity and the exact screen that you're using. Okay, then what are the next two? What if we make this 0? See what happens. Yeah. So this is the width, the x width. We make it 50. No change. So basically, width can't be 0 because MATLAB has put certain constraints from its side. So width can't be 0. 0 and 50 are giving same result. What 100? Again the same, not much change. Yeah, now it's increased. So there's a minimum width based on, I guess, because we have a plot, we have this y-axis, we have this frequency, we have labeled the y-axis, we have labeled the x-axis. So these take space. So MATLAB will not compress them beyond a point. Even we cannot compress them. See, trying to compress, but it is not. I can expand though. Let's have 400 width. Looks good. Then naturally this must be the height. Let's make 850 instead of 450. Yeah, see the height has changed. I can't access the and close this like this. Yeah, one way is to close it this way. The other way is to just make it 450 again and run it. And we know it'll close because we wrote this command here, close. So this command is really helpful. Sometimes some of your figure windows or something may be inaccessible unintentionally by mistake. So it really helps. Okay. So this is the position, and so the first two are the coordinates of the bottom left point of the window. Those are the coordinates in pixels. And then we have width and height. What have we done here? Plot. So plot is in the form where like first, so one the size of Q and W have to match. So here we see that Q is a 1 cross 201, W is also 1 cross 201. W can be 201 cross 1 also. It doesn't have to be. We can use transfers also. I don't think it should change. Trans transpose, sorry. Yeah, it's giving the same result. Transpose of W. Or I'll just for confirmation. See here, W has become 201 cross 1 and Q is 1 cross 201. It still works. MATLAB will take corresponding first values, corresponding second value, corresponding third value. MATLAB is smart that way. Okay. Now, yeah, so when you're plotting, First Q belongs to the X values. So the first entry in the plot belongs to the array of the X, and the second entry belongs to array of the Y, and they have to match in sequence. That's why transpose did not affect it much. So, yeah. Okay, can we change the line thickness? Yeah. So line width is a property. We just changed it to 2. Okay. What is this? This was the dashed line. This indicates that the attenuation curve should have a... No, sorry. This was for the... I was just plotting the cutoff, which was calculated analytically. 2 square root k by m. And again, what are we doing here is see. So the x values, I'm making an array which goes from -5 to 5 with gaps of 5. So then that should be -5, 5, and 5. -5, 0, and 5. Right? Just for confirmation. This is the array. Right? So because this array contains 3 entries, what I did was I used this function once. This once creates 3 comma 1 means we'll create an array of 3 rows, 1 column, basically 3 entries. We can do ones 1 comma 3 also. Should not change, at least in this context. So, right, these are going to be, so this is going to be -5 to 5. Why did I choose -5 to 5? You see, the plot is going from minus pi to pi. I just want to ensure that this dotted dashed line goes beyond it, doesn't abruptly end. So we see it goes from -5 to 5. I can click on home. Clicking on home will reset. Okay. So now you could describe perfectly from where the line should go. You could match it exactly in X, but it doesn't matter here. It's a reference line. It can go out of sight. All we are caring about that should be accurate within the scope that we're looking at. Yeah, so ones, right? But it has to be of this value. So you multiply that value with ones. If you do that, you get 222, which is the cutoff in this case. 2 seems to be the cutoff here. Okay. Let me change the color. Just this is the property. So you can refer to the function plot, and then you can look at all its properties. And basically, you can use this format of property name, property value, property name, and then we'll write property value. So let's say I want black. K. K is black. So we got this. Why is K black? So there might be some K might be some in some language, or maybe black is called by something with K. I don't know. I'm guessing. But K is typically black. I mean, B is already taken. If you do B, you get blue, not black. Yeah. And this is it's a very French blue, I guess. Very bright. Similarly, you can R is for red. Y should be yellow. Yeah, is O orange. No, O does not exist for orange. So wait, I think white is W, but that will just disappear. Yeah, it's disappeared. So white is W. Okay, anything else? C might be cyan. Yeah, C is cyan. Again, so you can look at the property color, and these codes are standard. Let's say you don't want to use this code. Let's say you want to specify exactly some color. So there are certain color formats that you can use. I think RGB format is one. To specify RGB format, 55. I think that is no, 0 and 1. Okay, so 1. Maximum is 1. These are the yeah, yeah. If all are 1, then we get white. All are 0, I'm guessing you get black. Black. Awesome. If you, I think if you balance it equally, it's a 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, you'll get something like gray. Yeah, this is gray. But let's say if we increase R, but the others are not increased, we should get a reddish gray, which is giving us pink. Whereas if you, this is blue, right? So if you increase blue and keep others as 0.5, 0.5, giving us green. Green is close to blue. Yeah, these are all related, like color theory. Oh no, it's RGB, so G for green. Yeah, that's why. The last one should get blue. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, so this gives you blue. Instead of increasing one more than the other, you can also decrease to check complementary colors. Let's say make one zero instead of as a complementary color of blue. I think it is some brownish yellow something, olive green. So yeah, complementary colors. The whole point is you should be comfortable with these if you want to plot because uh, see metamaterials one of the most fundamental this thing is a dispersion curve. You look at a dispersion curve and you should be able to decipher a lot of things very quickly. So it's a skill. In fact, the more dispersion curves you look at, the more systems you analyze, the more you are able to connect the unit cell with the dispersion curve. And yeah, and when you have let's say so much information and so much story conveyed through dispersion curve, often you would require to use appropriate colors to tell your story. Maybe different modes. Let's say if you have a 3D uh, structure, then you might use different modes as different colors. One for longitudinal, one for transverse, one for rotation. You can within the attenuation band, like you can use different colors. Then there are lots of reference lines, like there we showed cutoffs. Then you'd have attenuation peaks. You'd have frequencies where maybe effective mass becomes infinity, or it becomes zero, or effective stiffness becomes infinity or zero. These lines may be really really important in conveying the story. So a typical dispersion curve, like a good dispersion curve, will show a lot of details without making it seem cluttery. And so you and using the colors is really really important, especially in dispersion curves, because um, there's another aspect that you have to think of. Are people looking at your dispersion curves, let's say in a paper, in on the screen? Are people colorblind? Then you have to say, and if you're conveying a lot of your story through the plots, then yeah, if someone is colorblind, then you're excluding them from science in a way. Um, and a lot of people prefer printed copies. They want to read printed papers and all. So in that case, does your figure, does your dispersion curve convey the necessary details in black and white? Uh, it's not always possible that what you're able to convey with all the colors, you can convey with the same ease in black and white. So, so you might have to use properties such as line width, maybe let's say, apart from color. You might have to change the line width. Just in black and white, it'll look different. And you might have to use a dashed, dotted, dotted, dashed. You might have to do that. You might have to use arrows and point and write this is this. So so that is why like it's totally worth spending a lot of time in decorating your plot because it's not just aesthetics. People in the field really look at a plot and they're able to decipher it in like seconds. It does not take them more than that. So so if so if there's anything that is wrong with some plots or it's always best to see what are the norms that most people follow when it comes to the aesthetics because most eyes are trained in a particular way. So if you follow that, then it's consistent with what people expect. Let's say if pass bands are solid and attenuation bands are dashed lines, but suddenly if I flip them, um, it might be confusing. So so that has to be taken care of. That people do not like reading literature and noticing these patterns and the field has sort of uh, come to a agreement what type of things are to be used for what to convey what type of things. So and that is the advantage of standardization is that the more you get used to it, the more quickly you're able to decipher the plot, you're able to understand. That helps in communication way better. Whereas if you use arbitrarily random things or you know something that you think maybe is conveying something well, but if it is completely opposite to how the entirety of the field, except for you, sees it, then it may be time to rethink. So so that is there, and I will take a break and then we'll continue. Yeah, so welcome back. So what we were discussing here, I think about this color. So there are there are appropriate colors, and they'll give you the RGB values of those colors. Let's just stick with black. Okay, okay, and even for this attenuation plot, let's just stick with so black. Black lines are uh, what happened. Okay, yeah, man. I should have. Haha, seems like I'm doing a lot of mistakes. Yeah. That's the beauty of coding that you can do mistakes and then you can just correct the one go. Okay, now, so what we'll do now is we'll put legends. See, since there are so many curves, reference lines, you have to properly mark them. So, so where we'll do that is okay. Brilliant. This looks fine. Now we just need to ensure that this legend is somewhere else. We can actually drag it and place it somewhere, or we could even give some command. Oh, should work. Let me just check. Position is location. Okay, we can use this format. Some versions of MATLAB, they have different, but we don't want outside, so yeah. Or we could just have east. That should also work. Yeah, no. Okay. Okay, yeah. Now the question is, why did we choose the values of Q for plotting the attenuation curve in such a way that so this pi by a is the real part plus 1i means 1i is note that at the cutoff point there is a alpha value here that is pi by a, where a is 1, so pi, right? And when you increase the frequency further, sort of, when you go into the band gap region, the alpha value remains pi by a, which it was during the pass band, but the beta value starts accumulating. So this attenuation curve, the x-axis for the attenuation curve are the beta values, the imaginary part of Q. Whereas for the pass band, it is real part of Q. and only then this continuity makes sense, because once one passband finishes, the appropriate attenuation curve picks up. Note that the cutoffs of any passband, we see they are typically, like we spoke about, in like when there are no long range interactions, that is unit cell 1 is only connected to unit cell 2, not directly 3, 4. So when you don't have long range interactions, then their cutoffs are either at pi by a, which is this completely out of phase mode, or pi is equal to 0, the q is equal to 0, right? So this is the lower cutoff, this is the upper cutoff. We spoke about whatever the value of alpha is at the cutoff, the band gap immediately following the alpha value remains the same. So this alpha continuity, this is a huge, huge factor in metamaterials. So that's how you judge, that's how you can predict the shape of attenuation curves without even looking at the attenuation curve, by just looking at the pass bands. So you can look at the pass bands and you can predict whether an attenuation singularity will exist or not. So, and that is what I was mentioning, like people in the field, like their eyes are trained to look for these things. And if these things are off, surely there is some error somewhere, either in the equations or plotting, something that people have done. So there are lots of sanity checks like these. And if you are entering into this field, then these sanity checks are a lifesaver. Okay, also cool. So that is why we took alpha value as pi by a. Let's say, for argument's sake, we don't take it as pi by a. We take it as half of pi by a. How will the, like we have taken here, how will the attenuation curve look like? So now this is totally unexpected. If this were true, this would mean that at the same frequency range, you would have an attenuation band as well as the pass band. That means the wave can propagate, the wave cannot propagate at that frequency. That doesn't make sense. So, so this doesn't make sense. That is why alpha is 0.5 pi by a does not make sense. What about 1.5 pi by a? Again, you see a similar thing. What about minus minus some alpha? Yeah, see, none of these are making sense. Yeah. Oh. Again, why pi by seems to make sense. Why is that? That is because, see, there is periodicity in the real space. That's what the crystal periodicity is. That shows as periodicity in the reciprocal space, that is the wave number. But that periodicity exists in the real axis of the wave number. And since we are messing with the real axis of the wave number, whatever result we got for pi by a, we are getting for phi pi by a. See, again, it matches. This is the expected, how it should be. Right. That is the argument. How about zero? Try zero. Oh, this doesn't make sense. Playing with these. But yeah, it's a very important point that is conveyed here is that the principle of alpha continuity. So across the cutoff from the pass band to the band gap, the alpha value continues and beta starts to increase from zero. Even beta is not discontinuous if you think about it, because here beta is zero. And then once the band gap starts, beta starts from zero and then it increases. So in a sense, both alpha and beta are continuous in the frequency axis. If there is no alpha or beta continuity, you can tell something is wrong. Somewhere, some formulation, some plotting, something is wrong. Maybe it's the normalization sometimes. Certain bands are normalized, but you might have forgotten normalizing something else. Yeah. So now next we'll cover normalization. Typically, this cutoff frequency that can be used as a normalizing frequency. Then this cutoff will be brought to 1. So if we do that, we normalize it here. Cutoff frequency is 2 square root. Yeah, so we've normalized omega. We have to normalize and then we have to normalize the third thing. Yeah, see now the cutoff is at 1. However, this Y label is wrong. It is normalized frequency. omega by omega, what do we call it? Of
It's your question, but I'll answer it. I agree with you. Trust and confidence. We're going to have a fantastic relationship with a different country right now that the world is over. Not only our country, but the whole world. I tell you, we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it'll make both countries much stronger.
And the president spoke about ISSS. Both sound very excited about this. Excited about the partnership upcoming. And I was curious, how much more are that there will be peace, successful partnership versus um, with if we
It's your question, but I'll answer it. I agree with you. Gross incompetence. Uh, we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it has been. But the whole world's been set back over the last 4 years by the weakness of the United States, the weak leadership of the United States. But I think we've taken care of it in just 3 weeks. It seems to me that even some of the media that we wouldn't prefer has been writing that this is a much different country right now, that the world has a light over it. Not only our country, but the whole world. The Prime Minister told me that before, too, even over India. The world has a light. They need the United States to be strong and powerful, but good. And I think that's happened, and I think it's happened in a very short period of time. But I will tell you, we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it'll make both countries much stronger.
Oh, so let's uh let's head to the mm, mass diver, or I think we can do stiffness diver. Let's do stiffness diver. These I think can be copied. Oh wait, we're running to mass divers and stiffness divers. Am I audible? I'm audible. Okay. Let's just see what happens when we change the value of K's and M's and A's, just to verify that I increase the stiffness. Huh. Where did it disappear? See if it's disappearing. Surely there is something wrong. What might be wrong? So this is fine. I think Y limit also needs to be normalized. I forgot. These things happen. Mm-hmm. 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 W is already normalized. I think we don't need normalization. Yeah, I was wrong. This is fine. Mm. What's happening? I think maybe one bracket was missing. Yeah, this is back. I think it's just a simple bond mass. Using extra brackets is always safe. Don't have to rely on bond mass. Awesome. See, checking it is always important. Just working on M. Seems fine. not A. N seems fine. I will normalize the x-axis also. Think in terms of pi by. What we should do is plot. Divide by pi by. Mhm. The attenuation also. Yeah. Pi by. Okay. By. I think it should be -1 to 1. Then hmm. Yeah, -1 to 1, but x limits have not been changed. -1 to 1 wasn't. But we need to mention that this is normalized. Q by A by pi. Yeah, it looks so much better. Brilliant. I think the monomer is complete. So now let's move to the dimer. Sorry. Okay. So now what we need to do is, see, we cannot, I mean, we can write omega, we can write the two values of omegas, and then we can plot the two bands. But then we're not really utilizing the power of MATLAB. If you want to utilize the power of MATLAB, ideally we should use certain inbuilt functions. Okay, we need to take advantage of matrix calculations, eigenvector calculations, eigenvalue calculations. Yeah, eigenvalue analysis basically, so that we will develop a framework, and that framework will use, so although this is a 2 degree of freedom system, it can be used for any degree of freedom system. If you can, a linear system, which we can write the mass and stiffness matrix as a linear combination, and as a linear combination of like you can write the equations of motion as in the linear form, and any double derivatives of time can be converted to like we can get that omega square out by taking the differentiation, and any connections with adjacent unit cells, they can be written in terms of degrees of freedom of the original unit cell in a using the bloch-Floquet boundary condition. So that's what we are going to do. Okay. Uh, what we'll do is we'll write the stiffness matrix. So we'll write the stiffness matrix K, capital K. Let me use capital A, because capital K is already used, I think, in many places. I think we can use capital K. Then we need to write it like this is 1, 2. Just for some, I'm just filling it up. 3, 4. We call it diagonal K. Yeah, so see if you can write the stiffness matrix in this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, yeah, now we'll fill the terms. So what's that first term? I have to refer, first term was K1 plus K2. Yeah, that reminds me, K1, right, K2 is equal to 2. Okay, K1 plus K2. Then the second term, minus K1 minus K2 into e power minus IQA. Okay, so minus K1 minus K2 into e power. So exponent and value in the bracket. To do that, let's say exponent e to the power, say this to 1.7183. That's how exponent as a function works. MATLAB exponent and then bracket, right? It was minus I, minus, and you know how to write I. I is 1I, QA. Okay, Q to A. Awesome. However, Q is an array. Okay, let's deal with it later. We'll see how to deal with it. Then the next term is minus K1 minus K2 e power plus IQ. The same thing. But instead of last term, if I remember correctly, it was K1 plus K2. Yeah, plus K2. Awesome. Let's just write the mass matrix. Mass matrix. I remember it was 0, 0. Pretty simple. Okay. Now we'll use the function I. It solves the eigenvalue problem. But we have to solve it for the dynamical matrix. So I of dynamical matrix is backslash K. So in matrix multiplications or divisions, if the forward slash and the backslash are important, they tell you because the matrix, if it is divided to the right or to the left, it is not commutative. So it is m backslash k. If you can check the equations. So when the m is in the LHS and k is in the RHS, and you bring m to the RHS side, so so it'll be dividing, but from the left. So it'll be m backslash. Whereas if it was reversed, then it would be different. We can just look for a square matrix. It might be same, I suspect, especially with the matrices of this. Nonetheless, this is the correct technique. So what does that give us? That solves the eigenvalue problem. And then it stores them in V, comma D. Whereas V gives you the eigenvectors and D gives you the eigenvalues. So let's take a look at this. We solve it. Yeah. Input matrix must be square. Why is that happening? Because K, if you see, it's 2 cross 202 complex double. What? How did we get into this? That's because yeah, so there are two rows and two of the entries had Q in it. So when we placed Q as an array, then essentially it expanded. So these are the two rows, but because the array was a row array, row matrix sort of. So that's why it's expanded in this way. But we want to deal with 2 cross 2 matrices in our eigenvalue problems. So what do we do? We'll have to take Q one by one. So this cannot be the case. Of I one at a time and solve it one at a time. 5. Let's say if I is equal to, I don't know, let's just see what happens. Yeah, D is the diagonal matrix where the entries are your eigenvalues. This is these are the eigenvectors. Within the eigenvectors, it's important to note the order. So this V, it's the eigenvectors are column, like each column is an eigenvector. And the row, so the row index belongs to the degree of freedom. The column index belongs to the, the mode number. Okay. Yeah, this seems to solve it. But however, we don't want just I for some 50. We want a higher number. Actually, all like, yeah. So I have to write a loop. Okay. Write a for loop for I is equal to, we have a look at what is the dimension of Q. Q is 201. 1, 2, 201. And okay. Yeah, that seems to have solved it. However, plot D. Okay, we are just getting two eigenvalues. Why is that? We should get 201 into two eigenvalues. But D is a square matrix. That is because the V and D correspond to that specific value of Q that is identified by I. The indice I is specifying which Q the stiffness matrix is for, and that tells you which eigenvalues and eigenvectors are being calculated. So that means we need to save D and V for each value of Q. Because if we do not save them, then we cannot plot them later. So we need to write V and D for each value of Q. So that is what we have learned. We'll take a minute break here. Yeah, welcome back. So, hmm. Okay, so we have to this V and D has to be V of I and D of I. Hmm. Or we can do it inside with necessarily complicating it. Can do is we can let them be like that. Then E is equal to diag. Okay, what does that give us? C. So earlier D was a 2 cross 2 matrix. Now D has 2 and 4 as its elements. The diag gives you the diagonal elements. But is it giving us an order? Yeah, it is giving us an order. It's 2 and 4. Okay. Yeah, it seems to be giving us. Yeah. Okay, and V. Okay, so V of I, I belongs to the eigenvectors. We will store the eigenvectors. They are also useful. Later, we'll see that eigenvectors through eigenvectors. See here, like the dynamic equation was written in terms of displacement coordinates. So then eigenvectors will give you the mode shapes. So eigenvectors are useful for mode shapes and also for later we'll see that topological characterization of systems. Um, the eigenvectors are crucial. Um, how eigenvectors vary with change in wave numbers, like uh, so yeah, in topology, like you integrate some values around a loop. So here we are integrating across the Brillouin zone. Then, then the cumulative value will give us some topological invariant, and sometimes, let's say, those invariants are quantized uh, in topological systems, and they reveal certain nature. Anyway, this is for later, but yeah, the whole point is eigenvectors are totally worth storing. So of I, and then so this colon means that all the indices at that position, like all the indices, like, okay, let's just call it like yeah, eigenvector. Like what they're saying here, Igwek appears to change size on every loop. So we haven't Now let's just run it. What we'll see. We are running it, and yeah, it is ran. Quick is 201 cross 2 cross 2. So this 2 cross 2 is 201 is the individual wave number, and for each individual wave number we have a 2 cross 2 eigenvector. Yeah, it's fine, but yeah, it might IWEC appears to change size on every loop iteration within the script. Consider pre-allocating. Actually, that makes it easy if we pre-allocate. So zeros, just like last time we saw 1, it will be zeros. 2, 0, 1. Now we can just look at here and what is the final size? Yeah, we'll just use that size. So this will be the size from the start. But it will be filled with zeros initially, and then later each term will be filled. Yeah. Okay. So these you can call, these are omega squares, right? And W is equal to square root of 2 to the power 0.5. Yeah. Yeah. So what they're saying is incorrect dimensions for raising power. So W2 is not a square matrix. So if it's not a square matrix, how can you, square it like W2 cross W2? You can't do it. What we originally want to do is uh, we want to do that operation on each individual element of the matrix. So for that, instead of using power directly to the power, use dot power, which means it applies to individual elements. Yeah, now it's working. So where's W2? Yeah, we see W2. Okay, so we have to store this, I guess, I, comma, omega, right? Omega values have to be stored. And we'll initialize omega. Omega as zeros, 201, two values for each q. Perfect. Seems to be working. Now we have to plot it. Plot q and omega, but q is a row matrix. Omega is dimension won't match. So we'll take omega for all the i's, but for the first mode. Okay, let's see. seems to be working. Yeah, I'll share the screen properly. No, it's the figure is just 9 years old. Figure and big one dot position. Can use same position. Yep. So this is the first mode. Hmm. Looks good so far. Let's plot the second mode. Yeah. Yeah, it's the second mode, but first mode has disappeared. For that, we have to hold the first plot in place while the second is being plotted. Now we have to awesome. The blue is the acoustic mode, red is the optical mode. Yeah, this is exactly what we got. Then yeah, let's make some changes. Let's first begin with some of the things that we did here. Y limit, X limits. Go one by one. We'll do this much. Normalized wave number. Okay. Normalized frequency cutoff. What is omega cutoff? We haven't described omega cutoff. Thickness diameter. Okay. So we're normalizing the x-axis. Yeah, it seems to be from -1 to 1. Awesome. Mega cutoff. Here, omega cutoff is but for the stiffness diameter case, so remember the value omega cutoff. Let me check. It was square root of, where is it? Square root 2 k1 plus 2 k2. Divide it inside the square root by this was the cutoff. So we normalize these two plots by the cutoff. Yeah. Wonderful. Now Yeah, so let us plot we need to plot the attenuation curves. Okay, now the question is, what is the alpha value going to be in the attenuation curves? Like in this band gap, right, we see that this band gap in the pass band, the alpha value is pi by a, right? So it has to start from pi by a. And then we see that it even ends at pi by a using alpha continuity. So we can guess that this band gap will be pi by a. So that will be alpha value. So yeah, so if we just use this, right now what we need to do is we need to create eigenvector space alpha values of pi by a. Let's call it underscore pi, right? Right. So differentiate it, calling adding an extra underscore pi. Right. So k let's say pi is an underscore pi. I think it should work, but we haven't plotted it yet. Hmm. Yeah, it works, but let's plot it. So we are going to plot but the imaginary part of it. Okay, make it let's see if we can make it that brilliant. However, see that this is a mess. Surely there are things wrong. Okay, so what's really happening? Hmm. Hmm. I need to decipher. So let's open Mega Pi. Okay, what we see is there are lots of now this frequency. So frequency cannot be imaginary. Uh, yeah, this is real. So we have to remove imaginary values of frequency because they don't make any sense. Here, these are real, these are imaginary. Okay, yeah, so we need to remove these. How do we do that? Before plotting, we have to do something. What we'll do is, okay, just a minute. Okay, so we'll see that, okay, what we can do is imaginary, okay, see, imaginary value of uh, imaginary value of, let's say, omega pi, right? Omega pi is, if this is greater than 0, but let's say let's take some value like E10 and no, E minus 10, 10 would be high, minus 10. Okay, so the imaginary value may be minus. So we have to take imaginary value and then the absolute of negative i's are not absolute of imaginary value of the frequencies. If they are greater than 0, then we can do is we can store those indices. Index omega unreal. Right, but omega real. Okay. Let's see what. One into e power. Okay. Okay. So if we look at index omega unreal, so this is a true. Means imagine one means true, zero means false. True implies the imaginary omega has an imaginary part, so imaginary omega. Yeah, this is fine. Brilliant. So what we need to do is for the first row, we are going to use some functions here. We'll use find. So what find tells you is find. Yeah. What find tells you. Let's see what find tells you. Yeah, find is okay. So find is giving you all the indices where the value is non-zero. So if the index of omega unreal is non-zero, that means that is the index of these are the things, these are the indices we need to eliminate. Okay. So we'll leave that. Okay, so we'll just eliminate. But then how do we eliminate? To eliminate, we have to do have to eliminate from omegas and q. Let's go by. Okay, so these are the indices. Eliminate gives you the eliminate index indices. Okay, so null space. So yeah, they'll be eliminated. I think it should work. Similarly, out of range. Why is it out of range? Okay, instead of 201, it is 402. Okay. Viola. I think we sorted it. Decent degree. Oh, awesome. What's this? Okay, this is happening. We should use scatter. Of plot if we use scatter. So I think some eigenmodes are got it. Yeah, these two modes got mixed up. That's okay though. We can just color them. Like they're not giving any extra information. There's edge. Okay. Yeah. So let's just change it to face. Hmm. Yeah, but marker edge color is also important. Bring it. Viola. Got it. Now this will specify the marker size right after X and Y values. Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, yeah, but we're still yet to get this. Let's get it. Hmm. So it will be 0. Yeah. Becoming more and more messy. Also, this works. It works. Okay, so we see that there is one attenuation curve at 0. Now, if you remember, yeah, if you remember grounding, you realize why there is an attenuation curve at 0. Because if it was grounded, this 0 curve, that would show up. So currently, it's suppressed. Okay, brilliant. Okay, let's take in the pass bands. 9 with at least. Awesome. Okay, let's just play around with. Okay, so what happens if K2 and K1 are coming close to 1.8? Is everything? Ooh, they're close. This band. Oh, oh, okay. I think the screen was not. Yeah. Okay, so far what we were trying to do was, I think, let's show this. Yeah, we were trying to plot the attenuation curve, and when we do, this is what we see. So originally, uh, yeah, if you just plot it, this is what you'd get. But of course, we know that see the blue and the red are pass bands. These are pass bands, and the black dotted the scatter plot is attenuation band. So we know that band and the pass band, they cannot be in the same frequency range. That does not make sense. So, so why was that happening? So we investigated, let's say, omegas, and we see that the frequencies have an imaginary component. The frequencies cannot have imaginary component. That means that it is dissipation or some energy gain. Now the truth is, this system does not have any dissipation. It's a simple spring mass model without any viscosity or material damping. So if it does not have any, dissipation, then these imaginary values should not exist. So all the frequency values where there's an imaginary component, they need to be rejected, just like we reject negative frequencies. We have to reject imaginary frequencies. So to do that, we identify the index position where omega is imaginary. This identifies the index. The next step, we convert it into true false array like zeros and ones. One is true, zero is false. One indicates presence of imaginary. And then we set those indices to be null. So we delete those values from both the Q and the omega. Because if you don't delete from the Q, then the size of omega and Q, the arrays, they won't match. Then you cannot plot. So you have to delete the corresponding Q values as well. You do that, then you obtain this. See, this extra bands have been removed. Further, do that for the other wave number values in, and you get a neat dispersion curve. Now what we are doing is we are going to assess what happens when K1 approaches K2. So we see that this band is sort of closing. Let's see what happens at exactly K1 is equal to K2. So you see band touching. What happens when K1 is greater than K2? Band opens again. So this band touching and band folding at the band gap, and then this band touching and then opening. And you see that before and after the band touching, the eigenspectrum, the dispersion looks similar. So the curve is similar whether K1 is greater by some amount or K2 is greater by the same amount. That is because the unit cell is inversion symmetric. So this property is going to be used later in characterizing the stiffness dimer as a topological model. Yeah. So in the next one, we will cover. We've covered stiffness dimer, and then I think we can just show the mass dimer. The mass dimer will be fairly simple. We can use the same code and slightly modify it. I think the next interesting one would be the local resonator based system. There we'll see a different type of band gap. And of course, after that, we have grounded system. Then we'll cover, um, I think after that, we have the lateral local resonator. So and then after the lateral local resonator, we'll have the inertial amplification. So we'll plot all these. We'll look at the band gaps. We'll look at the pass bands, the band gaps, the attenuation curves. In the next one, the local resonator one, we'll see something called as attenuation singularity. So here we see that attenuations, they are not going like yeah, it's going to the right, but it is going. The attenuation value is going to, probably going to infinity at frequency of infinity. So that's not what we are talking about. We're talking about finite frequencies. At finite frequencies, if the attenuation curve goes to infinity, then call that attenuation singularity, and we'll notice it in a local resonance system and also in a lateral local resonance system. We'll notice, we'll characterize the grounding. Like we said, that grounding is an extreme case of local resonance system. So we'll characterize it. We'll also see the attention in the grounding region. That will give us clarity. Uh, and then we'll see that if the resonance frequency is really, really high, then the model becomes a monomer. So we'll see that as well. We'll see that So all these, I think, if you have a MATLAB code and you can play around with it, you get really good insights. Um, yeah, then even inertial amplification. So just from the dispersion curve, just by analyzing the unit cell, we are able to uh, get so much information from it. And uh, so after all these unit cells are analyzed and conclusions are drawn, we'll move to the finite systems. So we'll see what is happening in finite systems. Uh, because real systems are finite. So that would be really, really interesting. So, yeah, I would like to thank you all for joining. I will stop